Recently, I was invited to a company's private box to watch an NHL game. Actually, Leafs and Sabres in Buffalo. It's an incredible way to watch a game. So we go into the arena and we go up to the private box, and all during the game we're watching the game down on the ice. But we have food and we have drink and all kinds of stuff, and occasionally we cheer when the team we want to score scores. And so there's all told in the arena about 18,000 of us watching 40 people down in the ice play. And of course we pay to go to the game. So we finish up the game and all the crowd kind of rushes out, and we say we've been to an NHL game. We've been to a hockey game. Well, in a lot of ways, that's kind of how we go to church sometimes. We pay to go. I mean, we give when we're there. And then when we go there, we sit in rows and we watch some professionals, a speaker, a musician, who are really good at what they do. And occasionally we participate and a little bit, sing maybe a little something or say a little something. And then we file out of the building and we go to our cars and we go home and we say we've been to church. There's a whole lot more to the Jesus life than that. In Ephesians chapter 2 and verse 10, it says that every believer is designed to join Jesus in his work. That every follower of Jesus is given gifts and abilities to be a player in his kingdom, not a spectator, not an observer, but someone who really plays in his kingdom. And so here are some truths that I'd like us to kind of think about in our life community. Here's the first one, that every follower of Jesus is on mission with Jesus. When we become a Christ follower, and again it says this in Ephesians chapter 2 and verse 10, we're called by Jesus to join him in his work. Last time we said Jesus' prayer was, your kingdom come. Jesus' prayer for us was, your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Well, we join Jesus in that mission. That's kind of our work. That isn't something you just simply do for an hour or two on a Sunday morning or a Saturday night in a building. It's how we live our lives. So if I'm a student, I'm on mission with Jesus. If I work for a company, I live on mission with Jesus. If I'm a musician, I live on mission with Jesus. If I own a company, I live on mission with Jesus. If I'm a nurse, I live on mission with Jesus. If I'm a photographer, I live on mission with Jesus. Well, when you think about it, what do they call somebody who lives on mission? We tend to call them a missionary. And when we think of missionary, we actually think of somebody who goes way over to a far country and tells people about Jesus there. Maybe what it means to be a missionary is somebody who lives on mission with Jesus right where we are, right where we live. Truth is, we all want to win at life. And I do, and I assume you do. So Jesus says you win at life not by focusing on yourself. You win at life when you serve other people and you're on mission with Jesus. So every Christ follower, every Jesus follower is really called to be on mission with Jesus. And then there's another thing that the scriptures really tell us is true, and that is that every Jesus follower is given gifts and abilities to be a player in this kingdom. One of the places that is laid out the best is in 1 Corinthians chapter 12 and verse 27, where it says that every person in God's family has a part to play in the mission of Jesus. Every person is given gifts and abilities. We're not all given the same gifts, but all gifts, every gift, all persons, every person has a part to play. We're not designed to be spectators and observers. We're really not. It was never God's intention that we watch a few gifted people play the most significant role in the kingdom. God really invites every follower of his to be a player and not a spectator. We're gifted, some with this gift and some with that gift, and some with very visible roles and some in roles that aren't that visible. those who know me know I like basketball. I like watching basketball, and I like tracking with basketball. And one of the fun things for me is watching how they put together an Olympic basketball team. One of the things you tend to think of is they would just get all the best scorers in the league, the best scoring guards, the best scoring forwards, the best scoring centers, and they would put them on the team so that they could score as many points as possible. What happens when they select an Olympic team is sometimes players and fans really get ticked off because they didn't get picked to be on the team, even though they score an incredible amount of points every game. And when you kind of drill in behind why a general manager picks a team, he says, we need some people who are great scorers. We need some people who are great rebounders. We need some real playmaking guards. We need some who think defense first, not offense first. And it really is this picture of needing all these kinds of gifted people to play. Well, it's really true for us who are followers of Jesus. We're given different gifts, different abilities, but we play together as a team. So I'm most alive as a follower of Jesus when I'm sitting down with another leader and I'm across, I'd say, a coffee table from them, and I have my coffee in hand, and we're talking about their leadership, and I can encourage them, and I can help them with thinking through some next steps. And if you kind of pile up 5 or 6 of those conversations over the course of the day, I come home and I think this is an awesome day, because I tend to have gifts in those areas. I have a friend who'd say, here's an awesome day for me. I go downtown into the heart of the city, and I connect with some of my friends who are homeless friends, and I buy them a meal, and I eat that meal with them, and they'll come home at the end of the day and say, that was an awesome day for me, because they're gifted there. I have another friend who really likes to work with his hands, and he likes to work with his hands kind of behind the scenes where nobody sees him. Doesn't like working at a desk, and he says, if I can work with my hands for Jesus, and I can do it where really I'm not in any limelight, and I do that week after week, after month, he would say that's an incredible time for me, because he's gifted in that way. So every person is designed by God with abilities and gifts and areas of interest to be a player in the kingdom. Well, one more thing I'd like you to discuss, and that's this. You really grow when you play. You don't grow when you primarily observe. You probably know that the best part of Super Bowl, if the game's good, that's a plus, but the best part of the commercials, and one of the commercials in Super Bowls are often the E-Trade baby commercials where you have the baby in the crib.
What do you think of this look for prom?
Is it during tax season? Interesting. The building across the street is going condo.
It's actually a lot of fun and some of the best commercials at Super Bowl. But if you're 20 years old or you're 40 years old and someone comes up to you and says, you know what, you're acting like a baby, it's not really a compliment, because the truth is we're designed to grow and mature. One of the clearest passages of Scripture on growing and maturing as a Jesus follower is Ephesians chapter 4, verses 11 to 16, where it says, we mature and we grow as Christ followers when we discover and we use the gifts that God has given us. So when we find out where we're uniquely gifted and we put them into play in the kingdom, we're stretched and we grow. When we see other people who are using their gifts and abilities in a place where God has gifted them, we say that's an incredible benefit for the kingdom. And the truth of the matter is when all of us are putting into play what God has given us in gifts and abilities, and we're engaged and we're not observing, God begins to use us in ways we never could have imagined. So here's kind of how it works. You're standing here as a Christ follower, and God has given to you some gifts and abilities, and he calls you by name. He says, Craig, or he calls you by name. And he said, okay, I think these are your gifts and abilities. I'd like you to take these gifts and abilities, and I'd like you to take a step of faith by doing this. And you don't think you can do this, so you check with other Jesus followers who know you, and they say, no, I think I think Craig, or they call you by name, I think you have these gifts. And so you take this kind of step of faith that you didn't think you could do, and what happens? What God shows up. And he uses you in some ways you couldn't imagine, and it stretched you so you grow, and then you're standing here, and what happens is God comes to you again, and he calls you by name. He says, Craig, he calls you, and he says, I'd like you to take this step of faith. And you say, well, I just took that step of faith. He says, no, I want you to keep growing. And so you check with people who know you, and they say, you know what, I think that aligns with who you are. And so you take this step of faith again, and what happens? God shows up, and you're stretched, and you grow. And then when God comes to you the next time, and you check with other people, and then you find out, you know what, I think with God I can do this. So you take a step of faith, and what happens? Why, God shows up, and you start to live like that as a player in the kingdom. Now here's the sad truth. The sad truth is there are a lot of followers of Jesus who are gifted, who are given abilities by God, and they spend most of their life right here because they're observers and they're spectators. And, you know, they can tell you what their gifts are, and they can tell you what their abilities are and where they think they're strong. They just never put them into action. And they look at those people who've been taking these active steps of faith, and they say, how'd they get so lucky? When it's not really about luck. It's about using what God has given you. Truth is, you were designed to be a player in the kingdom, not a spectator. Rather, using your gifts and abilities in a way that breathes life into you, advances his kingdom as you live out your purpose.